Right now, sitting exactly where you are, you would lose. Not a close fight, not a brave loss. You would lose in about 4 seconds. And I want to be specific about why, because ancient humans were stronger is the kind of thing people say without meaning anything at all. So let's actually build the fight properly. Same height, same weight, no weapons, no rules, nobody to stop it. One of you grew up in a house with a fridge. The other one grew up outside and had never once had an easy day. Start with the bones, because bones are the part that cannot lie. In 2015, two separate research teams, one led by Habiba Churchier and one led by Timothy Ryan, measured the spongy bone inside human joints across hundreds of thousands of years. Ancient foragers had far denser bone than we do, not slightly denser. In some joints, around 20% denser. And the collapse does not begin with modern life. It begins with farming. The moment humans stopped walking all day, our skeletons quietly got lighter. So your opponent is not just a person who exercises, he is a person built out of thicker material than you are. Now look at the shape of him. A Neanderthal man stood around 5'5" and weighed close to 80 kilos. Read that again. That is a heavyweight boxer's mass packed into a body shorter than yours. His chest was wider, his forearms were shorter, and his shoulders were thicker at the joint. Short forearms sound like a disadvantage. In a grapple, they are the opposite. Shorter levers mean more torque. And more torque means that when he takes hold of you, you go where he decides. His hands are the part people never think about. Neanderthal thumbs and fingers show enormous muscle attachments, built for what anatomists call a power squeeze grip. Modern grip strength studies keep finding the same thing. Living hunter-gatherers routinely crush the numbers of office workers of the same size, and the ancient hands look stronger still. If he catches your wrist, that is simply the end of the discussion. Even his teeth are working equipment. Neanderthal front teeth are worn down at a strange angle, and there are tiny cut marks on the enamel made by stone tools. The explanation almost everyone accepts is that they held things in their mouth and sliced towards their own lips. Their jaw was a third hand. A person whose face is a tool does not flinch the way you do. You are not completely empty-handed, to be fair. You are probably taller, so you reach further. And if you have ever been taught to actually throw a punch, you have technique that nobody in the Stone Age was formally taught. That is worth something. It is worth roughly one good shot before he closes the distance, and after that the fight is happening at his range, not yours. Then there is the part that decides real fights, which is not strength at all. It is what a person is willing to do, and what they have already survived. In 1995, Eric Trinkhaus and Thomas Berger compared Neanderthal injuries to injury records from modern occupations. The pattern that matched best was rodeo riders. Head, neck, and upper body trauma, over and over, from something large and violent at very close range. That is what their hunting was. They did not shoot from a distance. They walked up to animals the size of a car and stabbed them. Shanidar 1 is the skeleton that makes this real. He lived around 45,000 years ago in what is now Iraq. A crushing blow to the left side of his face almost certainly blinded him in one eye. His right arm was withered and ended above the elbow. He had a healed broken foot, and he walked with a limp. And he lived for years like that, hunting with a group that kept him alive. That is your opponent's normal. Not a gym. A life where you keep going while broken. Now, before you decide this is hopeless, understand that they were not stupid brutes with clubs either. In a peat mine in Schoningen, Germany, archaeologists found wooden spears roughly 300,000 years old, carved with the weight forward like a modern javelin. For decades, people insisted they were only for stabbing. In 2019, Annemieke Milks tested replicas with trained javelin athletes, and they hit a target at 20 meters. 300,000 years ago, somebody could put a spear through you from across a car park. So in a straight fight, you lose. Strength, grip, bone, experience, willingness. It is not close. But here is where the story turns, because the fight you would lose is the only fight you have imagined. Change the rules. No fight at all. He simply has to catch you, and you have all day. Now everything flips. You have long legs, springy tendons in the ankle, and a neutral ligament in the neck that stabilizes your head while running. You have almost no fur, and millions of sweat glands, which is a genuinely strange way to build an animal. Daniel Lieberman and Dennis Bramble laid this out in 2004. Human bodies are not built to win brawls. They are built to keep going after everything else has stopped. That is persistence hunting. You do not outrun the animal. You follow it at a pace it cannot maintain until it overheats and cannot stand up. A furred animal cools by panting, and it cannot pant properly while galloping. You cool by sweating, and you can sweat while running. Over 2 hours in real heat, this is a death sentence, and the slower animal wins. And this is not a story about you versus a Neanderthal, because that fight actually happened across Europe for thousands of years. They did not lose because they were weak. Every single measurement says they were stronger than us. They lost slowly over generations to something much less dramatic. Wider trade networks, larger groups, sewn clothing, better fuel efficiency in a cold body. A Neanderthal needed more calories a day than we do, and in a bad century, that number kills you. The strongest hominin in Europe was outlasted by a lankier, sweatier, better connected one, which is us. There is one more thing worth saying because it is the part people get wrong most often. The idea that ancient life was constant fighting is not really supported. It happened, and we can prove it happened. At Narok in Kenya, around 10,000 years ago, 27 people were killed at once, some with their hands bound, some with stone blades still lodged in their skulls. At Jebel Sahaba in Sudan, dozens of bodies carry embedded projectile points. And Otzi, the Iceman, was shot in the back with an arrow and had defensive cuts across his right hand. But those are events, not everyday life. For most of human history, groups were small, food was spread thin, and a serious injury with no antibiotics meant a slow death. Fighting a healthy adult was, in the most literal sense, not worth it. The dominant strategy was avoidance. Which brings us back to you, standing in front of a man built out of denser bone, with a grip that could open your hand for you, who has already survived worse than anything you have ever felt. Do not fight him. That is the entire answer. Walk, keep walking. Follow him in the heat, at a pace that feels almost embarrassingly slow, and do not stop when he speeds up. Do not stop when he disappears. Do not stop at all. Because the thing our species was actually built for was never winning the first 4 seconds. It was still being there after everyone else sat down.